Welcome to the Cambridge Tech Podcast, talking all things technology from the heart of the UK's tech capital. Here are your hosts, Faye Holland and James Parton.
Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Faye. So James, you're here.
I am here, but I haven't got much to update you on this week. Still on jury duty. So, as everyone knows, I'm sure you can't talk about what you're up to. So, that's the end of my updates this week. How's your week been?
Not the same as yours, obviously, but thanks for all of the text messages and emails when you've got 5 minutes and you've obviously been being productive. So, my week's been super busy. We had 4 client kickoff meetings last week. And for me, it kind of shows that things got a little bit tight, didn't they, middle of last year? And we've talked a lot about funding and people doing longer lead times on funding, but it certainly seems to be changing now, and lots of companies are putting their heads above the parapet, which has got to be a good thing.
Yeah, new year, new budget, right? That's always exciting.
Exactly. I also last week went to a very interesting debate organised by Cambridge Wireless, who I think most listeners will know they're a leading connectivity membership organisation for technology. And they had this debate, and the topic was, this house believes that the positive impacts of AI will unavoidably be outweighed by the negative impacts. So it was a really good debate. They had 4 great speakers. You can go and take a look at them on the social feeds. 2 for, 2 against the motion, obviously. And the against was a really compelling argument. You know, they talked about a whole host of things around deep fakes, algorithms being controlled by a few powerful individuals. And the 4 talked about, as you would expect, the benefits, huge benefits in medicine, discovery, education, simulation, all of those kinds of things. So the outcome was against the motion, with the audience taking the optimistic view that the benefits would outweigh the negatives.
That kind of doesn't surprise me. You'd hope like a room full of technologists and scientists and academics would be positive, generally speaking, about AI. And like, we speak to people virtually every week, don't we, that are using AI in some kind of application that can bring, really substantial benefits to society. But I keep coming back to, I think the industry as a whole, and maybe we're doing a small piece of this, really just needs to do a better job of education and influencing the general negative media narrative towards AI, because everyone, does get very hung up on generative AI, don't they? And this whole deep faking of images and video and untrustworthy news sources, etc. So I think there is a collective need for us to do a better job to really emphasize the positive side of AI.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the ones that were not supported, that were more pessimistic, were definitely more on the human angle of things and, and following, like you say, following the hype. It did not help that the next day, Geoffrey Hinton reiterated his argument on national news that there's a 10 to 20% chance that AI will lead to human extinction in 3 decades. So I'm like, flipping it, that's just completely counter to what you've just been saying.
Well, I would have thought there's a higher percentage that humans will lead to the extinction of humans, isn't there? So.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Right. I can feel this hole we're digging into now. So let's move on to some more positive news, shall we, from the Cambridge ecosystem, please, James?
Luckily, I wasn't there. Yeah, let's move on. Okay, right. So for our first story is from Paragraph, who are pioneering the mass production of graphene-based electronics with standard semiconductor processes. They have been awarded a grant of $420,000 from Innovate UK to produce a proof of concept prototype of a novel semiconductor memory technology. The new solution uses a new class of ferroelectric materials complemented with graphene on a silicon platform. CEO Simon Thomas said the future of computing in fields such as AI will require storage solutions that conserve energy and reduce heat output. Graphene is uniquely positioned to fulfill those requirements, so the development of these devices, created alongside Professor Driscoll's talented team of scientists, is key. And that really carries on a theme that we've talked a lot about actually in the last few weeks, doesn't it? Which is a whole focus around energy efficiency and the environmental impact of the growth in data centres.
Yeah, absolutely. So over to ARM, the UK superchip architect, saw its stock on Nasdaq climb almost 7% and $11 to $173.26 after posting record Q3 revenues. Its market cap hit $182 billion. And CEO René Haas has said that the AI demand from the edge to the cloud has continued to drive strong momentum from the ARM ecosystem as it guarantees, like we've just said, more energy efficient compute. So again, a big tally with that story too.
Yeah, I mean, we cover a lot of startup stories on the podcast, but we know that, entrepreneurship and starting companies is hard. So some sad news from Zedify, who are a Cambridge-founded pioneer of low-carbon delivery services, has gone into administration after failing to secure new funding. The startup had raised a total of $9 million in funding from investors such as Barclays Sustainable Impact, Mercia Ventures and the Midlands Engine Investment Fund. And the company statement said, in 2024, we saw the beginnings of a large-scale transition to low-carbon deliveries as major brands and carriers put their faith in Zedify's model. Our riders and drivers have worked so hard, travelling nearly 1 million kilometres, almost 80% of which was on cargo bikes, saving a huge 292 tonnes of CO2. We have pushed and exhausted every possible avenue to keep Zedify going on a national level, but this time it just hasn't been possible to find the funding.
Sad, unfortunate news for Zedify, but failure, you learn from it and you move on and you do something different, and so they may reappear doing something different, and there's certainly learnings that we can get from that. So as terrible obviously as it is, hopefully we'll be able to get something positive from that as well. Okay, so moving on, another piece of news. The East of England has got another powerful voice in the UK's effort to win more global trade. Norfolk stalwart George Freeman has been appointed to represent the UK in Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore and Brunei as part of a new global growth team of trade envoys designed to drive UK exports and investment. There are 32 parliamentarians drawn from across the political spectrum that have been assigned target markets across 6 continents and tasked with identifying trade and investment opportunities for businesses and championing the UK as a destination of choice for investment in those markets.
Orcascan have launched a new web-based tool that gives businesses of all sizes the ability to design, create and print fully compliant barcode labels in minutes. Orcascan founder and CEO John Doherty said the release of the barcode label designer solidifies Orcascan's position as the one-stop platform for all things barcodes. We've listened to our customers across all sectors to create simple web-based solutions that require no barcode knowledge or design experience. Now companies of all sizes can create and print and track barcodes all in one platform. The tool is compatible with widely used barcode printers from Brother, Dymo and Zebra. And please go back to episode 27 to listen to our full interview with John.
Absolutely. And finally, the shortlist for 21 to Watch has been announced. It featured in the Cambridge Independent last week. You can find it also by looking at the Cofinitiv feed on LinkedIn or searching on the hashtag 21 to Watch. It's a really interesting list. There's an awful lot of biotech this year. And we've got some of the earliest stage entrepreneurs, many with really embryonic ideas or businesses in stealth mode that are still willing to showcase themselves and again raise their heads above the parapet. There are a couple of recognisable names, some that have gone through some of the other funding and startup programmes, but there's loads of fresh companies from Cambridge and the wider East of England, with a few contenders also out of Innovation Hothouse and Norwich Research Park. So watch this space for the announcement, which will be made on the 6th of March.
Yeah, awesome. And good luck to everyone. Congrats to Second Mind CEO Gary Broteman, a friend of the podcast who has acquired UK citizenship. He also said some friends in his American-based network are also considering relocating to various territories in Europe, including the UK, for either lifestyle reasons or to pursue dream jobs. Of course, you are all very welcome to join us here in the UK, and if you do, please do come on the pod and tell us your story.
Absolutely. So, We have this week for you an update podcast. We caught up with Farbod Shakouri and we thought it'd be interesting as it shows how much things can change in these early stage companies and how important it is to be brave enough to pivot. Hi, Farbod. It's great to have you back on the show. I can't believe it's been 12 months, pretty much to the days, since we last spoke to you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great to be back.
Absolutely. So I remember the first podcast we did with you. You talked to us about your chances of succeeding were low and you were going to be taking on the big giants and you weren't entirely sure how things were going to go, but you had a plan. So what's happened in 12 months?
The plan was to learn as quickly as possible. And we did just that. So in the last 12 months, we went from, and I think last time I was here, I was telling you guys about, we were working on building the operating system for other manufacturers, building glasses, so smart glasses. But we effectively went and said, let's just do it ourselves. Let's just build the product ourselves, the full product, which is what made it 10 times more difficult. But in some sense, it liberated us to actually build the best possible product in a way that allows us to find a real niche, which is what every startup should try and aim for, which is find a niche and dominate that niche, which is usually a differentiated offering in a product or in a market that's, either a stagnant market that requires innovation or it's an existing market that requires different thinking, right? That you have to find a niche. And so we kind of had this idea at the beginning of last year to say, okay, we're going to start building our own prototypes and selling them, in samples to customers and companies to find the one thing that we know we can offer that no one else can do. So we tried a lot of things, but actually, interestingly enough, the one thing that we were working really on at the beginning of last year turns out to be the thing that no one really wanted. And that's always the thing the startup should always try and find, which is what are you actually working on that, no one actually needs versus nice to have. So we basically found out that like AI, which is a buzz term really, but AI with all its great technological feats is really a nice to have for the most part on some of these wearable products. So we found an actual niche, and that niche is what I'd love to talk to you more about. Basically, it's biosensing, something that you've seen with wearables today, mostly wrist-worn wearables or even the rings, Aura Ring, for instance, and Whoop. They have an incredible product because what they've effectively done is they've created a product in different, unique in different ways that offers users insights into their health. What we found was if you're building glasses, number one, it should look and feel like a regular pair of glasses, before you even think about going down the smart path, because otherwise it's just not going to get adoption. And that's the brutal reality. And every company that says otherwise is wrong. No one will ever adopt smart glasses unless it looks like regular glasses. And second to that is, if you're going to build smart glasses, the first question you should ask yourself is, what can you build with smart glasses that no other form factor could ever achieve? And that turns out to be tracking the eyes, because that's the one thing that kind of wearable product can do. Now, tracking the eyes can be done in many ways, but just the eyes itself can tell a huge story. So we've realized that the main problem we've always wanted to solve that was sort of behind all these challenges was actually helping people ultimately get away from their smartphones and reduce their addiction. So if you can now track their eyes or learn more about their attention, key detail, then you can actually help build better habits to minimize their smartphone usage.
Okay, that's interesting. So there's a ton that we want to delve into here, because I think there's not only the kind of company updates and the more factual stuff that's happened, but I want to just touch on, as a leader of a startup that's kind of going on a journey and is like pivoting and learning as it goes. As you built that initial team to do what set out on what you thought you were going to do, and then have changed course as you've got more insight and feedback, how do you keep everyone in, going in the same direction and brought into the mission of the company? How have you approached that as a kind of leader?
I don't know. I think it's not so official in that sense. I think we're all in. We all want to build a great product from the very beginning. We all had the same vision, if that makes sense, right? We all wanted to have smart glasses that felt like a regular pair of glasses, but could have in the future all these amazing things. But ultimately, the reason why we wanted to do this is because we just hate smartphone addiction. We hate social media addiction. It's terrible. It's actually terrible. And the worst part about social media addiction is that, first of all, social media companies are advertising companies, ultimately. They're advertising platforms, which means that they are incentivized to maximize your attention for profit. So if they are also the companies now that are building the next generation of computing technology, like wearables, like smart glasses, those same companies with those same perverse incentives will try and maximize your attention for profit. So they're effectively going to build smart glasses that track your attention, not to help you, but to actually sell it for advertising. So to us, that's the issue. And we're like, well, if that's the direction it's going to go, we should get ahead of the game and actually build a product that does exactly that, focuses on, number one, track your attention, but not to sell it, but to instead offer you insights and habit building exercise. A little bit like how Whoop, for instance, can measure your exercise, sleep, and so on, to offer you better ways to manage that, incentivize you to build goals, reward you for it, a gamified process effectively, right, of monitoring your health. But the same can be done for cognitive health. And that's something that's never been done before for that purpose.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So with this kind of shift, is your target customer changed, or are you still thinking about selling direct to consumer as like a health wearable, or are you thinking of partnering with healthcare providers or charities that are looking at impacts of social media and these kinds of things?
Direct to consumer, you get feedback much more quickly. Okay. You understand exactly who you're building the product for. We're not building it for the middlemen, if you like to call it that. We're not building it for them. We're building it for the customers. So at this point in time, we're going direct to consumer. There are pre-orders from consumers that we're engaging with. Yep. But we are going to go down the distribution path, of course, because most glasses today are bought in stores. And I believe it's something like 70% of all eyewear is bought within 30 minutes after an eye exam. So you need to position yourself where there's eye exams, effectively. So that means we need to build partnerships with distributors. We have one potential. We have a trial that begins in a few months with a distributor in Europe. And so that would be exciting. But they were actually the ones that turned around and said, remove the display. We think it will do better. Like, there'll be less friction. And we thought, why not remove everything except the biosensors and just turn it into a passive product that you just wear and it just monitors your well-being and, most importantly, focus. So the thing that it does is it can detect when you're reading, gaming, driving, walking, and so on, activities that are very useful for understanding your level of attention throughout the day, how it impacts your attention, and what kind of health benefits or drawbacks there might be because of it. So it then generates insights based on those habits and the quality of attention. And then it can detect the type of attention that you're undergoing when you're doing any activity. So for instance, when you're reading, it requires sustained attention. When you are cooking, it actually requires divided, because you're doing multiple things. If you're walking, it promotes creativity, right? So there's different kinds of benefits for different kinds of activities. So it detects those activities and it gives you insights. And it's a way to gamify it as well. We have this really cool idea, which I won't say now because we're going to reveal it in full, where we've gamified the process of focus. It's a really unique way, one, to actually have better focus. And that's what we want.
So you've had the product in market now, or the glasses in market, since September 24. You're obviously still going through refinements. When do you think you'll be in a position to tell the distribution you're ready for full-scale distribution?
In probably 2 to 2.5 months.
Okay.
2.5 months, yeah, maybe even less. We're definitely in a position to ship in late March. That's our goal.
That's brilliant.
We have a trial with them beginning of March. So we'll have to basically be ready by March.
Yeah, okay.
We have no choice.
So that's really interesting. So why don't we move on and talk about the funding side of things? How have you funded the business to date?
We have actually raised on an ongoing basis through 20 plus angel investors through our own networks, but it's not a good idea because what you're doing is essentially drip feeding your business, and it's a terrible way to plan. It's a terrible way to try and actually build a product and launch a product. So don't do this. Actually have a round. In fact, I would encourage people to pause development. I mean, if I was to do it again, I would just pause development, literally just stop for a second and actually build a proper roadmap and then go out there and, hit the target number you need to raise, or at least get close to it. And then actually develop as efficiently and as quickly as possible to try and seize as much material feedback as you can, whether it's feedback as in users' response, if it's a product that's free, but but most importantly, money. So generate revenue as quickly as you can. So yeah, that's how we've sort of raised it on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, that's interesting. And, as you approach this round, what's been the reaction from the investor community with the, this new narrative around paring things back and focusing on attention, and, what's the reaction been to that?
Honestly, great. And the reason is wearables today track sleep, track exercise, they track your steps, they track, how many times you go to the toilet, but none of them can track actually your attention and or cognitive health. So we want to build a product. This is probably the first ever consumer product that can track your attention. And the reason for it is to help you build a better habit. And for example, it detects doom scrolling. So when you're doom scrolling, it will know you're doom scrolling, and it will basically be able to tell you at the end of the day how many minutes and hours you spent doom scrolling. Not screen time, doom scrolling. It's a very different thing. And so that's a very important thing for you to understand about your attention and how it impacts it. So you'll be able to tell you, reading is one way to counter it. So if you read, you actually build the muscle, if you'd like to think of it like that, for focus, because it requires deep, sustained focus, whereas doom scrolling is the exact opposite. Every 2-3 seconds, you're shifting focus from one thing to another. And you also don't have any intent when you're consuming media like that. You're not actually thinking, what do I want to do? You're sort of just letting your mind wander, and it's being, if you can think of it as being programmed by all the content that's coming through. And so your attention never catches up. You're always being fed things. So we're trying to counter that.
I mean, I love this because it's making me think about attention, which I never really have thought about much. I mean, obviously you're going to keep things under wraps for the time being because you're going to announce, the kind of way that you're going to gamify things. But the first thing that dropped into my head was when you talked about identifying different contexts. So for instance, if you're tracking the eyeballs, you'd be able to, I guess, alert if a driver falls asleep at the wheel or something like that? Is there a kind of safety application as well as?
No. Okay. We're only engaged on that one thing. Okay. We're only engaged in helping you improve your habits for around focus and attention and distractions. Okay. So the one thing it does, the simple thing, the first thing it will do is it will detect interruptions. So for instance, if you're working, if you're reading, if you're doing something that's productive, if you like to think of it like that, it will detect interruptions. Okay. That's the first score you can build with it. But then beyond that, you also have quality of focus and different activities and the kind of focus associated with those activities. But you mentioned driving. We can detect driving, but only to help provide an insight about how that impacts focus, not necessarily to provide safety.
Does it just tell you after the event, or is there like going to be an inbuilt alert system to say you are doom scrolling, stop now, or Faye, exactly, or Faye, you've gone off on a tangent again, get back onto what you're supposed to be doing, because that's the really useful bit as well.
It sounds like the most useful thing, except people hate that. They will not wear it, so they don't want to.
I haven't got the product management job. I'm sorry.
You're correct. I absolutely wouldn't wear something that would tell me to stop doing it.
It sounds logical, because it sounds like the best thing you should do is to say, hey, by the way, don't do this right now. But what you're doing, and the thing is, it's like the carrot and stick, and the stick doesn't work as much as the carrot does. So the thing is, people prefer being rewarded and feeling good about doing the right thing than to feel like they're doing the wrong thing and being told they're doing the wrong thing.
I'm sitting here now just arguing with myself, right? It's a productivity thing. So at the end of a very busy day, and I'm sitting there going, I wonder what I've actually done today, then I've got this thing that comes up and goes, oh, that's what you've actually done today. And it allows you to assess yourself, I suppose, doesn't it? So
yeah, it's good to feel rewarded for actually improving and managing your focus better. Like, for example, if you're someone that, most people today are, I think everyone's addicted to smartphones. They just don't know it. Because everyone is, no one knows it. Like, it's not one of those things, it's like if everyone smoked cigarettes, no one really think they're addicted. They just talk about it like a regular part of life. But it is literally the most addictive substance, if you want to think of it like that. But no one's actually tackling it in a meaningful way. It is what it is, all right? But the thing is, it doesn't get better. It only gets worse from here, because, as I said, the same companies that are building those advertising platforms with those perverse incentives are going to build the next generation of computing, and those are going to be more invasive, more intimate. So they will be able to hijack your attention even more effectively. So we have to do something to make people want to improve their focus in a way that's fun. And it has to be fun.
Oh, it's very thought-provoking stuff. So what do you need next? We've got you back on the podcast, had an update because things have obviously significantly changed. I know you were contacted on the back of the first podcast as well. You had some positive outreach. What do you want to do next?
So at the moment, we're closing this round. It's a mini round, so it's not for venture capitalists. But we are going to work on shipping this product in the next couple of months. So we're in production mode in the next month and two, and we begin shipping to the pre-orders around end of March, beginning of April time. Around that time, we're launching the VC round. That's when we're doing officially the seed round for the business. And, it's taken us some time to get here. We think we finally found our niche. And if the distribution deal also happens, then we've got this amazing opportunity to offer a incredible opportunity to brands, existing eyewear brands, for them to generate recurring revenue, which is a new business model, because the eyewear industry is also stagnant. They sell a pair of glasses and they make about half their money from eye exams, some of them, if they have that as a business service. But the product itself is difficult. You sell it once, the customer goes away, 2 years later to come back, they might need a new eye exam. Sunglasses typically sell a bit better because it's seasonal, plus usually you have more than one. So the thing that's really interesting is that because we have a subscription model, so you buy this pair of glasses, which is really affordable. It's about, in dollars, about $195, £150 roughly. You buy this product and then you get a membership basically to get these analytics, get the gamified experience, but you don't have to, right? You can just use it just to detect your interruptions and the basic stuff. And then the great thing is if we get those customers, we can go to eyewear brands and say, this is the fun part. We say, hey, look, you could be generating a recurring revenue here if you adopt this tech in your products as well. And I think that's going to be exciting for us because once we validate tech, once we have enough customers, we can definitely then experiment with different things like that.
You're painting a nice picture there of the experience. Just to kind of backtrack a little bit back to the product just before we wrap up, by stripping out a lot of the original technology ideas, I'm assuming things like battery life and all those things are significantly improved. So, what kind of impact would be like, changing the weight of the glasses and, how often would I need to charge them? Those kind of everyday kind of things that adds friction to the experience.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, the funny thing is, this is probably lighter than most normal glasses.
Okay.
So, because we've gone for a specific type of approach, building the frames, using really lightweight 3D printed plastic actually, but looks and feels extremely premium. And so, as you said, because of the fact, we've removed all these things, it's just looks like a regular pair of glasses and feels like one too. It weighs, 30 grams or less even. I think we're still getting to the number. But there's a charging case and there's a lot of interesting things we're doing. I won't spoil this part.
Okay.
There is something really cool about this charging case. That's gonna be revolutionary.
Get me on the trial. I'm convinced.
Yeah, this is going to be the best charging case of all time. No joke. Like nothing's ever going to come close to this.
Okay, sign me up.
So James is on the trial, and you've just set yourself up for another update. So we'll just get that booked on as well.
I'll be here. I'll let you try it and get your feedback hopefully live.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks a lot for coming back on, Farb.
Thank you for having me.
Today's show was produced by Carl Homer of Cambridge TV and supported by our media partner, Business Weekly. The Cambridge Tech Podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and on cambridgetechpodcast.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It'll really help others discover the show.
If you are a startup looking to grow in Cambridge, the Bradfield Centre offers a range of flexible membership packages which put you in control of your office and home working mix. There's a vibrant, collaborative atmosphere, on-site cafe, plenty of green outside space, and regular member social events. For more information, visit bradfieldcentre.com or call 01223 919 600.